everybody, and thank you for joining Redirect Destiny. I'm Mary Curran, and we have a special guest joining us today, Myra Roberts, who is a very well-known artist. I'll give some of her accolades in a moment, but first, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's so good to see you, Mary.
Yeah, good to see you too. She's joining us from her art studio in Sanibel Island, which is
Right.
gorgeous. Maybe you'll give us a quick little tour in a minute.
Sure.
Myra has won so many awards, and she's known prolifically in Southwest Florida, but nationally and internationally as well. You were named one of the top women of Southwest Florida a couple of years ago, I remember.
That was an incredible honor. That was through PBS and WGCU. And that's something that I will always hold dear to my heart because I love WGCU and PBS. So yes,
Yeah,
along with other women in Florida, I was
they
honored.
did such a great documentary on it as well, which I really enjoyed watching.
They
What,
did.
and you just won another really wonderful award.
I did. I won an award through the Alliance for the Arts. They were looking for artists who had work they could put up on giant billboards in Fort Myers. So I entered a piece called Dive In, and it won. And I think there were 500 other artists, and I'm sure they were all great. But they chose me, and I think another handful of really good artists. And our work will be on giant billboards in Fort Myers for people to see.
Oh, that'll be so fabulous. You can kind of tell this is actually one of Myra's prints behind me. She likes to work in vintage Florida. Would that be the way to describe it?
Oh, yes. Have a great interest in vintage Florida, vintage fashion, and that particular time period when things seem so, especially compared to what's happening now, so light and breezy and fun.
No kidding. All right. Well, as far as I'm concerned, and the reason you're here today is that one of your best accomplishments is that you had worked as a school teacher for 25 years. And
Did.
upon retirement, you said, I would like to have an art business, and you actually did it. I think of how many people say they're going to do something, and for whatever reason, it doesn't happen. So let's talk a little bit about your journey.
I would credit my mother really with my journey because she always encouraged me. From the time I was a very little girl, she took me over to a neighbor's studio when I was 5 years old, who was a professional artist. She was a painter and a potter, and I loved going to her house. So my mother kept bringing me back, and I just remember being certain. And as a little tiny girl, I want to be an artist. And my mother would remind me, you always said that, dear, you're going to be an artist. And one thing she did tell me, though, that I think changed my life, she said, you can be an artist, but find something practical to go along with that. And so I thought, okay, I love art. Why don't I share that with other people, art and art history, other children? So I taught all grade levels for a good 25 or more years. But as I taught, I always had a studio, and I painted voraciously, sketched and painted and watercolored in the studio in the evenings and all summer as well. Hi again. Where were we?
Well, hey, first of all, I have to tell everybody, we were going to maybe do champagne today, but we're being a little on the healthy side. So Mira's drinking a healthy tea. I'm drinking a green tea. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit and chat and talk about what your post-retirement life has been. I mean, it's nowhere near retirement because you're running a heck of a business, but how did it come to be? How do you keep it going? Like, were there any challenges for people that are in that retirement phase and they're thinking about
Yeah.
turning a hobby into a business? Give me some advice.
Well, I think you have to have a couple of qualities within you to keep on going. You have to have that inspiration, that drive, and that love of what you're doing. I think the third thing is the most important. I seem to always have something to say, and I could only say it properly, I think, through my artwork. I do a lot of social commentary art as well as my Happy Florida art. And I think that's how I speak to people, and that's how I think I stay relatively healthy, because that's my way of self-expression. It always has been.
Did you
is through.
have a goal, like to make money? Was part of your, oh, I'm going to retire and make more money?
I
Was it really that just, I have to express myself?
It really never was about making the money. It was about I have to express myself. But I have to express myself a lot because I always have 3 or 4 canvases going, and I think um, that's one of the important things that I see is if you are going to be a professional artist, don't stop and keep going and have confidence in everything you do, even if it doesn't turn out great. Just keep going, and that's what I do. I keep going. And for me, at my age, staying healthy is really important because art to me is also very physical. You're moving around, and you're at least I am. Um, it's not something for me where I sit still. I stand up when I paint and I move a lot. So I have a daily yoga practice, yoga and meditation, which has been really helpful through this time we're living in.
Yeah. So
So,
the current on the canvas is a self portrait where you're wearing a mask.
yes. Can I take you over to it?
Ah, show us.
Okay.
It's all about. I'll have a sip of tea while you're walking.
Well, when we had hurricanes in Florida, I did a series on each hurricane, Hurricane Charlie, etc. I did vintage women blowing in the wind. So for this time period, and that's what I do. I like to record the times I'm living through. So wash hands. I don't know if you could see it.
Love that. Look at her dress. Oh, that's what attracted me to your art in the first place. I love vintage clothing, and that's just fabulous.
Okay, so that's one that I did. And then I haven't done a self-portrait, and I've been wearing a lot of masks. I think that's really important. So that's not finished. That's just about not even a quarter of the way through. So
Great.
that's working on now.
Do you ever have to worry when you do make statements like that? Do you worry about your more commercial side of your business, or how do you handle
I don't because I've been to so many art museums, and I study art history. I teach art history. And I always made a mental note that it's really never the art or rarely it's the art that's decorative that stands the test of time. So I do both. I do both because when you go into a museum, you see art that has some social significance, that records wars, that records death. Then you see art of the genre would be what I'm doing, beautiful women, beautiful gowns. And I'm not saying one is more important than the other, but I do both. And of course, I don't think about selling my coronavirus portrait, no, but I feel it's an important record of the time I'm living in. And it'll probably sit in a warehouse with 1,000 other pieces I have, but that's okay with me for now.
because you're expressing what you're going through? Now,
Yeah, that's
I'll tell you,
important.
I wasn't sure that we'd cover on this today because you just have so many areas and so much depth in your work, but you've been working on a series involving Holocaust survivors.
I spent, gosh, a good 10 years doing that. I would interview survivors and heroes, and I loved every one of them. And many of them have since died, which is why I thought it was really important to meet with them before I did their portrait. And I would, much like you're doing, I would interview them and take their story. And I did several big exhibitions. I would go around to schools around the United States. I would have my work in museums, and people would come through, and I would simply tell the story of the person I painted. And of course, they weren't feel-good stories by any means. A few of them were in a way because they were of heroes that saved thousands of people. One of them, Robert Hilliard, lives on this island, and he's 96 years old today. So I think with that work that I do is ongoing, but I had to let it go for a while because it's also very emotional and very draining. But
I
I
can only imagine.
probably have a good over 100 pieces of Holocaust, World War II art. In particular, I'm most gratified by being able to go to schools, and through storytelling and art, I was able to educate many children, teenagers about that period of time, that dark period of time in our history.
Yeah, I saw a thing on 60 Minutes the other day where they interviewed survivors of Auschwitz, and they
Yes.
put that 3D, and you can actually ask any questions, and the video can
Oh,
answer.
really?
Ah, it's fascinating. Make
That
sure
does sound
I'll
fascinating.
send you a link because it was really fascinating what it can
Yeah,
do.
send it to me. I would love to see that. Thank you.
Yeah, I will. Leslie Stahl did the story. All right, so getting back on track with my retirees, and my goal is to try to give them inspiration and to have them follow their dreams. Did you have any challenges? Because art's always been in your being, but what about maybe the business side or trying to get into a
Yeah.
gallery?
I find it extremely difficult to get into galleries, and I every time I get into a gallery, which isn't my main goal, um, I'm very thankful to be in that gallery, that they would give me the wall space. So I would tell any artist, not an easy task getting in a gallery. And again, I'm in a lovely gallery up in Captiva, Two Islands Gallery. I've been there for many years. I'm in a gallery in Sanibel called Lily's, and I have a card business, and I would not be able to run it. You know, you asked the question, you know, how do I do all this? I reached a point where I said, I don't think I want this business. And so I hired a marketing director, Stephanie Anderson, and she is gold to me. I cherish her. So that's how I do it. I hired someone to do it, and she does a great job. And that way I could be creative, and she takes the business end and the gallery, and she does it well. And we're good friends as a result, too.
That's awesome. So you got to the point where you can do that. Think there's ever going to be a point where you retire from art?
No, I
All right,
don't,
great.
because
Done with that answer.
I really don't. I love doing the art, and there's always something to explore. I just came back from a long trip in Greece. I lived in Athens, Greece, for, let's see, how long was I there? 4 months. And I traveled through about 6 islands in Greece. And I took pictures and painted a lot of the things I saw. And what I did was I bought a traveling easel and watercolors, and I was able to do, I think, like 40 watercolor paintings while I was in Greece. And hopefully, I'm hoping I'll have a show of those paintings at the Sanibel Library next March.
Oh,
But that's
awesome.
a long, no, I never stop. And I just, I love being an artist, and I love the world of art, and I always will.
That's
I
terrific.
would die with a
How did you get
paintbrush
them
in my
home?
hand.
How did you get 40 prints back home again?
Okay, so I had to figure out a way I could do that, because normally I work on big canvases like the one behind you, the Sanibel Library. I bought some really beautiful watercolor paper that would fit in my suitcase. And I wrapped it in real thick cardboard and tape, brought it home, and it was fine. And my husband had them all framed for this show that I'm going to do with them.
That's awesome. Yeah, we probably should talk about that because one of the things about retiring from one career and starting another is what's the spouse to do about it? And he's been really supportive.
He's great. He's in a way, he is one of my art assistants. He has done frames for me, and he takes my work to the photographer, and sometimes he goes, not again, because sometimes it's twice a week. He goes down to Naples, gets my work photographed. He has curated a few of my shows. He's really good at that. He was an artist himself, so he's got an eye for setting up shows.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Good to have that kind of support. My
Yeah,
husband's supportive of me too, which is awesome. All
it
right,
is.
I really appreciate you being here today. Any other advice for anybody as they hit midlife on just how to get the most out of it?
I think you could do some of your best work in midlife and on. I think I don't believe in that word for me, retirement. It's just not in the picture. And I never have a day where I'm bored and there's nothing to do. And I like that. I'm a real energetic person, and I always have to be creating. So being an artist just fit me, and I will continue and forge on and forge ahead.
Yeah, it's who you are.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for this interview.
And thank all of you for joining us. If you know somebody that has a really cool achievement that they've made at Midlife, please let me know. You can either leave a comment below or private message me. I'd love to hear about it. In the meantime, that's it for today's show. I'm Mary Curran. This was Myra Roberts joining us, and this is Redirect Destiny. Hope to see you all again soon.